Liv woke up with a start. The pale morning light seeped through the blinds, casting a soft glow over her bedroom. Her head was pounding, and her body felt unusually heavy. She turned onto her side, hoping to fall back asleep, but it was no use. She had been struggling with sleep for days, but today it felt different. There was something in the air, something suffocating, like the walls themselves were closing in. She glanced at the clock on the nightstand. 9 a.m. She groaned and rolled over, rubbing her temples. The headache was still there, pulsing relentlessly, as if trying to force its way into her thoughts. There was a deep, gnawing ache in her chest, too. It wasn't just physical discomfort, it was something more. Something intangible but all-consuming. Maybe I'm just tired, she thought, but the feeling didn't go away. The house was eerily still. No sounds of traffic, no birds chirping, no distant hum of neighbors' activity. It felt like the whole world had paused. Liv lay in bed for a long moment, the silence pressing down on her. Her eyes darted to the window. The outside world was blanketed in fog, casting an ominous pall over everything. She shivered, pulling the covers closer around her. It was the kind of morning that made you want to stay hidden under the sheets forever. But eventually, she had to face the day. A sudden knock at the door broke the stillness. The sound startled her, making her heart race. She tried to ignore it, but it came again. Light, hesitant, but persistent. Who could it be? She wasn't expecting anyone. With a deep sigh, Liv pushed herself out of bed, feeling the weight of exhaustion in every movement. She walked slowly to the door, her hand trembling as she reached for the doorknob. She glanced through the peephole. Tim. Her stomach dropped. Tim was an old acquaintance, someone she hadn't seen in years. The memory of him was fuzzy, like an old dream, but the unease was immediate. Something about his presence felt wrong, too sudden, too unexpected. Still, she opened the door a crack. He stood there, smiling as though they were long-lost friends. But it wasn't a warm smile. It was something colder, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I just thought I'd check on you," Tim said, his voice casual but with an edge she couldn't place. "You've been sick, right? I thought I could help out, maybe watch the house for you while you rest." Liv's heart skipped a beat. There was no reason for him to be here. She hadn't seen him in years, and now he was standing at her door, offering to help. It felt wrong, like a trap she couldn't see. "No, thank you," Liv replied, her voice a little too sharp. "I'm fine, really." Tim's smile didn't falter. "All right, but if you need anything, you know where to find me." Liv shut the door quickly, a chill running down her spine. Something wasn't right. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming, something terrible. Liv returned to her bed, but sleep was impossible. The silence in the house was deafening now, even more so after Tim had left. Her head ached worse than before, and the sensation of being watched crept over her. Her thoughts kept drifting back to Tim, and the more she thought about it, the more uneasy she felt. Why would he come by? Why now? She tried to focus on something, anything to take her mind off the unease creeping into her thoughts. But then she heard it. A soft creak. Her heart raced. It came from the hallway outside her bedroom. Liv's breath caught in her throat as she froze, straining her ears. The sound repeated, a footstep. Slow, deliberate. Someone was in the house. Her body went rigid. Is it him? Her mind screamed. The same unease that had started with his visit now twisted into something darker. Her heart hammered against her chest, but she couldn't move. She waited. The footsteps continued. Nearer. Closer. Liv's pulse quickened. She knew she had to act, but fear paralyzed her. Her breath came in shallow gasps as she glanced around the room, desperately looking for somewhere to hide. Her thoughts raced. What if he's still here? What if he's already inside? The footsteps stopped. There was only silence. Liv's hands were clammy, and she stood there, rooted to the spot, waiting for something, anything to break the tension. But the silence lingered. The weight of it settled deeper in her chest, pressing down on her, suffocating her. Another knock came, louder this time. The door. It wasn't Tim's voice this time. It was a low, growling murmur, but there was no mistaking it. Someone was in her home. Someone she didn't know. Someone who wasn't supposed to be there. Liv's heart thudded painfully in her chest. She had to get out. She had to hide. But where? Her eyes darted around, panic setting in. The bathroom. She ran for it, but the door was locked. No. She pounded on it frantically, but no one responded. She turned and ran toward her parents' bedroom, but it too was locked. Desperation flooded her senses. The only place left to hide was the closet. She darted inside, pulling the door shut behind her, trying to steady her breathing. She crouched in the dark, silent as a shadow, listening intently. The door to her bedroom creaked open. Liv. Tim's voice, now cold, like ice, echoed through the room. I know you're here. I'm not going to hurt you. She didn't believe him. His tone was wrong, the words coded in something sinister. Liv's hands trembled as she covered her mouth to stifle her breathing. Her body was shaking uncontrollably as she huddled in the dark, praying he wouldn't find her. Minutes or maybe hours passed. Tim moved through the house, his footsteps heavy and deliberate. Every now and then, she heard him muttering to himself, but she couldn't make out the words. And then she heard it, the scraping sound of something metallic. A knife. Tim was looking for something. Someone. She held her breath, praying he wouldn't find her. Suddenly, the closet door jerked open. Liv's heart skipped a beat. But it wasn't Tim. It was nothing. The door had simply opened in the stillness of the house, swaying in the air. The temperature dropped, and Liv couldn't help but feel the air thicken with dread. Then came the final sound. The slamming of the front door. Tim was gone. Liv didn't move for what felt like hours. She waited, listening, waiting for the sound of his return. But it never came. Slowly, she forced herself to leave the closet, her limbs weak, her body aching from the tension. She crawled toward the stairs, her eyes scanning the dark house for signs of movement. Finally, she reached the bottom of the stairs, where she heard her mother's voice calling her name, frantically searching for her. Liv's eyes widened in horror when she saw the glint of metal by the door, a knife, just lying there, forgotten by Tim. Her heart pounded in her chest as she realized the truth. He had come for her. He had come to hurt her. But why? What had changed? What was he looking for? Her mother arrived at the bottom of the stairs, pale and shaken. She gasped when she saw the knife. What's going on, Liv? Who's been here? Liv could only stare at the blade, her mind reeling with terror. She couldn't speak. The words wouldn't come. That night, as the house fell into an uneasy silence once more, Liv couldn't sleep. Every sound made her jump. Every creak of the floorboards sent shivers down her spine. Her mind raced with memories of Tim, of the fear that had taken root in her chest. She realized then that no matter where she went, no matter how far she ran, Tim's presence would always linger in her mind. The fear would never leave her. Years have passed since that day. But the fear never left me. It's not the kind of fear you can outrun. It doesn't disappear when you move to a new city or change your locks. It stays with you, weaving itself into the fabric of your life until it's a part of you. I live in a dorm now, far from the house, far from the darkness that chased me that day. But I can't shake the feeling. Every night, I check the door locks. I check the windows. I make sure everything is secure. Sometimes, when I'm lying in bed, I hear the creak of footsteps in the hall. The knock on the door. I tell myself it's nothing. Just a trick of the mind. But I know the truth. Tim is still out there. And he's waiting. The air in the clinic was thick with the sterile scent of disinfectant, and the faint hum of fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, almost drowning out the sound of Emily's tired footsteps. She wiped down the counters and scrubbed the floors, as she had done every evening for the past few months. At 17, Emily was used to the work, but that didn't make it any easier. Her back ached, and her limbs felt heavy, as though the weight of the entire day was bearing down on her. The clinic had been relatively quiet today, just a few patients in and out, a few minor check UPS. But it didn't matter, Emily was used to the calm of the place. It was a small, family-run clinic with few employees, so when the day was over, she was often left alone to finish up the cleaning. She checked the clock 7:45 p.m. She had almost finished her last task, emptying the trash bins in each of the rooms. In 15 minutes, she'd be done and could head home. It wasn't a glamorous job, but it kept the bills paid. And the isolation of the clinic at night always gave her some peace. She smiled softly to herself as she wiped down the last counter. The silence was comforting, familiar. But as she took the last trash bag to the back door, something in the air seemed to shift. It was a slight change at first, barely noticeable, but it made her feel uneasy. She shrugged it off. "I'm just tired," she thought. "It's nothing." But as she stepped outside into the dim light of the street, a cold breeze swept past her, carrying an unspoken tension that set her on edge. She adjusted her jacket and started down the sidewalk toward home. It was when Emily was halfway down the block that she noticed them. 3 men stood by the mailbox outside the clinic. They were clustered together, their posture stiff, their eyes fixed on her. They didn't say a word. Emily's stomach tightened, a reflexive instinct warning her that something was wrong. The men were too still, too silent. They weren't talking or moving, they just stood there, their gazes unwavering. She forced herself to keep walking. "They're probably just waiting for someone," she told herself, but the unease gnawed at her. Her footsteps quickened, but her heart began to race. It was as if their eyes were tracking her every move, following her, waiting. She tried to shake off the feeling. Just ignore them, she thought. You're almost home. It's nothing. She turned her gaze straight ahead and kept walking, but the sense of being watched intensified. The air felt colder, heavier, as though the evening had thickened around her. She glanced back once, and the men were still there, unmoving. Her mind was racing, but she told herself again that it was fine. She was just being paranoid. Nothing would happen. Nothing would go wrong. A few more steps and the feeling hit her like a wave. A soft, unmistakable sound, footsteps behind her. At first, she thought it was just the echoes of her own steps, but as she continued walking, the sound kept matching her pace. Her heart thudded in her chest. She told herself it was nothing, but then the footsteps grew louder, closer, and her breath caught in her throat. She couldn't help herself. She glanced over her shoulder. There was no one there. But the footsteps didn't stop. They were still there, right behind her, matching her every step. Panic gripped her, cold and fast. She could feel the back of her neck cling with fear, her limbs moving more urgently. The footsteps followed her, unwavering, getting closer with every step. Emily's mind raced. It's them. They're following me. Her fingers instinctively clenched around the keys in her pocket, just like her mother had taught her. If you ever feel threatened, hold the keys between your fingers. It's a makeshift weapon. It'll protect you. She wasn't sure if it would help, but she squeezed the keys tightly, the sharp edges digging into her palm as she quickened her pace. Her heart pounded in her ears, the fear swelling inside her, making it hard to think straight. She needed to get home. She needed to get inside. Her apartment complex was just a few yards away now, but her legs felt like lead. Every time she glanced over her shoulder, the footsteps were there, matching her speed. The anxiety was unbearable. Emily reached the door, her hands shaking as she fumbled with her keys. The sound of footsteps stopped only when she reached the door. Thank God, she thought, I'm almost there. She yanked open the door, pushing her body against it to slam it shut behind her. But as she was closing it, a hand shot through the gap, grabbing her by the sleeve. The door hit the man's hand with a sickening thud, and he let out a sharp, agonizing yell. But Emily didn't hesitate. She didn't even think. She yanked the door back open and ran as fast as she could down the hallway, her heart thudding in her chest. The man had been so close. Too close. She darted into the lobby and hid behind the front desk, gasping for breath. She could hear the muffled sounds of footsteps and angry voices from outside the door. She stayed absolutely still, barely daring to breathe. The men outside were becoming more frantic. Emily could hear them banging on the door, shouting curses, demanding to be let inside. Her breath caught in her throat as she curled into the smallest ball she could manage under the counter, hoping against hope that they wouldn't find her. Her mind raced, replaying the sound of their footsteps, the fear she'd felt, the image of their eyes locked on her. Her entire body trembled with the adrenaline still surging through her veins. They weren't leaving. They wouldn't leave. Minutes felt like hours. Every crash, every bang, sent her heart leaping into her throat. She could hear their voices now louder, angrier. One of them slammed against the door with a heavy thud, causing the entire frame to shake. She fought the urge to scream, to run. Instead, she squeezed her eyes shut, praying that someone would come, that someone would help her. After what felt like an eternity, the noise outside stopped. Emily waited, holding her breath. It was too quiet. The silence stretched on. Her legs were numb from crouching under the counter, but she didn't dare move. And then, she heard it, the sound of sirens, faint at first, but growing louder. The piercing wail of the police cars echoed through the street. Emily's heart leapt. Help! They're here. Within moments, the police were inside, securing the building. They moved quickly and efficiently, checking every corner. One officer approached Emily, kneeling down in front of her. "Are you all right?" he asked gently. She nodded, her voice too shaken to speak. He smiled reassuringly, but the relief in his eyes didn't match the fear she still felt. "Don't worry," he said, "you're safe now. Those men have records. We've caught one of them. He's wanted for theft and assault. You were right to hide." Emily shivered, her mind still reeling. They had been dangerous. The thought made her stomach churn. The next few days passed in a blur of police reports, interviews, and a growing sense of unease. Emily barely left her apartment, afraid that the men might return, or worse, that she might run into someone else who wasn't so easy to escape from. But the fear was also a lesson. It changed something inside her. She vowed never to walk home alone again, never to ignore that gut feeling that told her something wasn't right. She began texting her friends or family every time she left the clinic, making sure someone knew where she was. The quiet, seemingly safe streets she had once walked down every day now felt like a danger zone. She learned not to take safety for granted. It was a hard lesson, but one that would stick with her for the rest of her life. I still feel it, even now, months later. Every time I walk outside, every time I hear footsteps behind me, my mind races back to that night. The men, the way they followed me, their eyes on me like I was prey. I never thought something like that would happen to me. I thought I was safe. I thought the world was predictable, but that night, everything changed. I can't walk down the street without checking over my shoulder. I can't shake the feeling that someone is always watching. Even in my own home, I hear footsteps in the hall, or the door rattling, and for a split second, I wonder if they're back. I wonder if I'll ever feel truly safe again.